What's going on, survivors? How do you stay warm in a sleeping bag? That is the question. How to stay warm when it's really cold outside in a sleeping bag. So, it starts with what you're sleeping on in the first place. You don't just want to sleep right on the ground because of conduction. The ground is cold. It's just going to conduct that heat away from your body. Even no matter what sleeping bag you have, unless you have something extremely insulated, when you're laying on the bottom, it's just going to compress all that insulation and you're not going to be warm. So it starts with the bottom right here. So a lot of people like to use insulated air pads, including myself. So you want to look at the R value of the pad. The higher the R value, the warmer it's going to be for wintertime environments. But if you just find a cheap one somewhere, it blows up, it's fine. If it's in wintertime, it's a good idea to even double pad your sleeping mat. So some people put this foam pad on the bottom. Some people put it on top. In my mind, I would rather have it on top. So yes, you can just sleep right on this on the ground. It's going to insulate you just fine, but it's going to be more comfortable if you have this air pad underneath. So you don't have to heat up all this air inside your insulated pad here. I would put this on top, and then you're going to stay warm from conduction. Now the sleeping bag that you want to think of is basically, you want to look at the rating itself. This one is a 15-degree bag, and it is a down bag. So if it is wet, the insulation in down just goes away, completely goes away. So it's going to compress. It doesn't insulate that air around you. So they say the fill rating in here. So this has 850 fill down. That doesn't mean how much down is in the sleeping bag, which I thought for a long time. They put a certain amount according to how warm they want to make the sleeping bag. So they put a certain amount in between these baffles, and that's why they sew these in here so the down doesn't move all around. So 850 is the quality of the down. And you may see 650, so that's less quality. The higher the number, higher quality of down it is. So you don't want to get your sleeping bag wet, for sure. You don't want to go to bed wet. So when you're going inside your sleeping bag and you're getting inside your sleeping bag, take your boots off, change into dry thermals. So to stay warm, get into some thermals. Light, thin thermals will help out. And if you're a warm sleeper, you don't even have to wear these. But so why do you think that is? Is you want to make sure that your body heat is heating up this insulation. If I go to bed and all this, and have all of my warm weather clothes on, your body heat can't really get out to the insulation of this bag. So a better thing to do is to put on some thermals, put on some warm socks if your feet get cold at night, put on a hat to minimize the heat loss through your head, and then stuff all of this, all your extra clothes, inside your sleeping bag here. If you have a cheap synthetic blanket, $10 blanket, $20 blanket that you buy, put that inside there, and you're just creating more insulation. So all your extra clothes, your puffy jacket, all of that, put inside strategically inside your sleeping bag. And usually a little bit more down at the foot box, because your feet are the furthest away, they get cold the easiest. So put it down by your foot box. Wrap in all of your other clothes around you if it's real cold out, and you're gonna sleep a lot warmer. Another thing to consider is to get warm and stay warm. When you go to bed cold, it just takes your body longer for your blood vessels to open up, and it just takes longer to heat up. So do some push-ups before you go to bed. Try and exercise. Drink a warm drink to warm yourself up from the inside out. Heat up water in a water bottle. Put that around you before you go to bed. And then warm up that way. Put it in your armpits. Put it in between your legs to help warm up that blood as it goes down towards your feet. Now, I do not recommend to sleep with water or a warm water bottle in your sleeping bag. You hear a lot of people saying that. Just the risk in a survival situation or when you're out camping, if that somehow opens up or leaks on you in the middle of the night, you're just gonna wake up cold. It's gonna take you at least an hour or two to dry your sleeping bag, if the fire is even going at that point. And it takes a long time to dry out down if you're using down. So if you're gonna use a hot water bottle, warm up with it beforehand and then take it out. Now, if it's the winter time, how do you keep your water bottles from freezing? You can put it underneath your poly pad, maybe underneath your legs. You can put it in between your insulation bed of boughs, or bury it upside down in the snow, surrounded by 2 feet of snow. So make a mound of snow, label it with a stick sticking up out of the mound so you don't lose it. So you surround it with 2 feet of snow, put it upside down because the water freezes from the top down. And when you wake up, your water bottles will be not frozen. Even when it's real cold outside, it makes a little refrigerator. It may be just slightly slushy, but that'll be fine. You wake up, put it around a lanyard, and then as you're moving around throughout the day, your body is going to melt that small amount of slush in your water. So that's the way to conserve your water and keep it from freezing throughout the night. So the advantage of down bags is they compress real small, they're real light to carry along, but they're expensive to buy. So a more inexpensive option is a synthetic sleeping bag, but they pack a little bit bigger and they're a little bit heavier. But the advantage to a synthetic is if you get it wet, if it's damp or if it's wet, for the most part they're still gonna insulate you, kind of like wool, unlike down. So synthetics are made to still insulate even when they're wet because they're not absorbing that water. So that's a nice part. If it's real wet conditions out, if I'm going somewhere where it's raining all the time, I'm gonna bring a synthetic bag. So forecast is gonna be pretty good, and it's not gonna be that much rain out there. I'm gonna go with down. Because even when you're in your tent or shelter that you make, your moisture from your breath condensates inside your tent. Depending if you have a single wall tent especially. Those almost always have condensation, even though they have vents in there. A lot of times, my foot box would be touching the side of, say, a little teepee tent. And then I wake up with my feet cold because everything just compresses down because it's all wet. So that's kind of the downside to single wall tents. And if you roll into the side. So you do not want to go to bed wet. Do not go to bed wet. I mean, if you absolutely have to and you have a synthetic sleeping bag and you're a little bit damp, you can dry yourself out throughout the night. I mean, that can happen. But 99% of the time, dry everything out by the fire using the 10-second rule. If you can hold your hand there for 10 seconds without it being too hot for your hand, then most likely you're not going to burn your clothes. So you hold your clothes there, dry them out, wave them a bit to get that airflow through it. Dry it out, put it away. Get the next thing, dry it out, put it away. Then with your socks, put them right next to your skin, right here on your thighs. So put them inside your underwear, your wet socks that you used throughout the day. So you put on your dry socks that you have in your pack, so your feet stay warm. Your wet socks that you have for the day, put them next to your skin, and your body heat will dry them out throughout the night. It's awesome. We do that every time. So, To stay warm in your sleeping bag, make sure that you have a good base so the conduction isn't conducting all the heat away from you. Whether that be 2 pieces of insulation, this would be good enough. This, depending on the R value, could be good enough. You just have to check to see if it's a 4-season sleeping mat. Make sure your sleeping bag is rated for the conditions. If it's a 15-degree bag like this one is, that's mainly what they say the survivability rating is for them, where you'd be just warm enough possibly to stay alive in there. So generally I take this 15-degree bag and I'm comfortable down to 30. So usually you increase it by about 15 degrees or so. It's kind of the general rule as far as sleeping bags go. But you can get away with, if it gets down to 30 degrees and you have a 30-degree bag, if you bring extra things to put inside your sleeping bag to stay warm throughout the night. So some people double dip with their equipment to try and save on weight. Now, if you don't have much to put around your foot box or in an Arctic type environment, it's always a good idea to shake your sleeping bag down and try and get a lot of that material spread out. Fluff up your sleeping bag before you start. When you pull it out of your compression sack, your insulation isn't going to be as fluffed up. So fluff it all up. Try and work some of that insulation down towards the foot box. Warm up. Eat something. Drink a warm liquid before you go to bed. And then if you need to wake up in the middle of the night to go pee, just do it. Because it's going to keep waking you up. It's going to be hard to get back to sleep. So trust me on that one. You always don't want to get out of your sleeping bag when it's cold. Just get up, pee real quick, get back in. Hopefully you should fall right back asleep. It should be no problem. You always hear, oh, I woke up at 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and I had to pee, but I just didn't want to get out. So I barely slept the rest of the time. So just get up and do it and make it happen. Those are a lot of the tips that I use and tell people to stay warm throughout the night. So let me know what tips and what things work for you down in the comments. So let me know what happens on your next trip if you're cold or warm, and keep surviving. Woo! Well, welcome to my office.